Today I'm going to sit down with Jasmina. You may recognize her as an adjudicator, but she's a dancer herself and has stayed connected with her love of dance throughout her life. I think you'll enjoy her perspective on the evolution of the dance experience. So pour a cup of mint tea and join us for Dancers in Studio Drinking Tea. Well, today I welcome to our podcast Jasmina. She is a longtime dancer and teacher, educator, adjudicator. She's really active in the dance world, and it's been a huge part of her life. So we're having some mint tea this morning, and welcome. Thank you for being here with us this morning.
Thank you, Christena, and thank you for the tea. As I mentioned earlier, it's perfect, one of my faves.
Why don't you just kind of tell me, how old were you started dancing? Give me a little backstory on your, how you arrived in the dance world.
Yeah, that's a good one. I was about 7, I think, turning 8. That was the year, and I remember my parents felt I needed to be enrolled in something, so it started with piano, and that lasted about 6 months. Although I love the piano, I was just not the best at it. Didn't like to practice, and I remember one day when we still had like door-to-door mail. It was dropped in your own personal mailbox. There was a brochure from a local dance studio, and I was like, oh my God, this is what I need to do. So I shared that with my parents, and they enrolled me in the next season when registration started. I started off with tap. Tap
awesome.
Was the first thing. Yeah, so I was about 8. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
And then after I had that 1 year of tap, I added on the following season jazz. And then at that point, my teacher said, you know what, you've got potential. You need to put the ballet into your program. And then that was it.
And then you were off and running.
Exactly.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And never stopped.
That's awesome. So, and tap being your first venture into right? It's, I'm always love that because I really wanted to tap, but I didn't, that was one of the things I added later in life was tap, and it was mostly because my mom was worried about her kitchen floors.
I don't even remember where I practiced. Probably in the garage. That was, and actually that love of tap came from what we were talking about earlier is the Tiny Talent Time show that I know that we all watched, and I was so enthralled when I got to see dancers performing in tap. I loved the music they made with their feet.
It's always amazing because tap is so intricate. Like I always say, tap is like math because it's precision.
For sure.
But then it's this beautiful musical rhythmic in between there, right?
Yep.
And, get things like time steps, and that's where they originate is in music, right?
That's right.
So it's so awesome. Yeah. I remember being excited. My mom was is a huge Kenny Rogers fan. And so growing up, that was one of the first bits of music I knew, and we would watch The Muppet Show, and one day Kenny Rogers was on The Muppet Show.
Oh, nice combo.
He sang The Gambler, and they tap danced, and I was just like mesmerized. Yeah. It was awesome.
It was
my first exposure to tap.
It's like the combination of, like you said, it's like the movement, the dance, like there's so much feeling and performance that goes into it, but it's the complementing the beats and the rhythms of the music that just, I don't know, enhance the whole
It really does. And the fact that you can kind of interchange the beat to go faster or slower and make those rhythms with your feet.
Did you watch Lawrence Welk?
No, I didn't.
Lawrence Welk shows too. Like it was all during that period. They had amazing tappers. You can still see it. You can still find videos.
I'll have to look at that.
That was another one of my favorite pastimes that really got me.
And so, would you say, like, even to this day now, do you still feel like you have a little soft spot for tap? Or
100%.
You don't want any time to think about that. No,
never ends. Sitting, you could be sitting quietly, whatever, making your grocery list, and my feet will be going with the music or just whatever's going on in my head.
Oh, that's wonderful. So, starting tap and starting dancing around 8 years old, how would you say, like, just kind of as you evolved into like a young adult, how did just a little bit of like how did dance impact your life, like and your kind of your choices of who you are or what you wanted to do with your life, right?
So I knew, dance was, once I got started, that's all I wanted to do. I went from 2 days a week to 3 days a week, and the more you can get me in there, the better. I think it was a good thing. I mean, I still had time with friends and things like that, but because I chose to be that much more involved in dance and a part of that community, I was okay not missing out on other things, or a camping trip here, or whatever, movie night with friends and stuff. I was okay with that
because you loved it so much.
Because I loved it so much, and I knew it was going to be a huge part of my life.
That's awesome,
and that's what kept me going.
No, that's great. And you end up with dance friends, right? So you have your friends from school, but then you have your friends from dance. So that balances where you don't necessarily feel like maybe you're missing out over here because you're doing something with your dance friends.
Yeah.
That's also I
mean, I still
common
made time.
interest. Yeah.
I still made time for things like that, but it wasn't like it was important. And I remember, like, even through high school, for example, everybody would be taken off, there was the sports games, or they participated in like sports themselves, or there were parties and things. School was done, that bell went, and I had my bag and I was off to the studio.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That was the life I chose, but it was good. It was good for me.
That's awesome.
It was good for me.
And it's lovely when you can kind of go into that world, right? And immerse yourself in something that you're so passionate about, and you can feel good about doing, right? And I know we were talking earlier about how when you're younger, and I think the dance world has grown and evolved in so many ways, and there's so many different opportunities and jobs, and we'll get into a little bit of how your world has altered as you've done different things. But when we were kids, it was kind of like, you were a professional dancer, or and that was kind of all we knew, right? And there's so many more opportunities. So kind of tell us how you got into teaching there, and like what that meant maybe for your life.
So I think I started assist teaching, or I was asked to be an assistant. First, I think like a demonstrator. I think it was in the 8th grade. That was kind of the intro into it, to see if I like it, to see how I fit in, and how I work with the kids. And I loved it. I loved being there. I mean, it was Saturday morning early. We were there all day. It was long hours, but it was so much fun, and it was an honor too. I felt honored to have been asked.
Yes, for sure.
And anyway, grade 9, they asked me to be an actual assistant teacher, which for us it meant it was a paid position. Like we had responsibilities. We were expected to dress a certain way, and I had to learn the lesson plans. I had to help create some lesson plans just in case the teacher was away. So it was a paid position, and I took it very seriously.
Oh, that's awesome.
Anyway, that's kind of where things started for me. I remember that era growing up in dance. Like you said, your aim was to become a professional dancer if you could. And I think people's thoughts around that, you had to look a certain way, you had to be a certain shape or a certain fit. So you were told early on, you don't fit in that mold, so that is not going to be the place that you're going to go, because you don't fit in that physical mold, which I'm so happy today that that's not the case anymore.
It is. It's a huge thing. And it was, I remember being a kid and being told, oh, you're short. You'll never dance in the National Ballet or professionally, because you need to be at least 5'7". Yeah. And in those times, I remember being devastated. Yeah. Yes. And it's like, well, what am I supposed to do?
Exactly.
And so, it is such a beautiful thing now that is, you never really hear that discussed anymore. It's not this, there's not the same stigma around it. There's not, you can be any shape, any size, and be a dancer and be a performer.
Absolutely.
And it's wonderful when you see that, like, displayed everywhere. Like, we were at a show in Broadway, that was on Broadway, and all kinds of dancers, different shapes, sizes, everything. Yep. And it's just wonderful to see so much authenticity and it to be really about the performer and their skill set.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is and that being the important piece of it, right?
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. And I think, seeing that slowly later come about and become a reality, I mean, that just kept me motivated, and that's okay. I had made that choice at that point, professional dance wasn't what I was going to do. I somehow ended up in that teaching field. And even though during my, career as a dance teacher, educator, I did other things. Sometimes I would step back from the dance or, like bring it down to maybe part-time because I felt the urge that I needed to try something else. And I did. And I was successful at it, but I was always drawn back to the dance.
Always drawn back to the dance. Yeah.
Always. That was home base. I always come back to that.
It's kind of like coming home, right? You come back to, I remember I had a teacher that said you always come back to the bar, or you come back to the center floor, and you find yourself again, right? And I think
refreshed.
And refreshed, right? Sometimes and I think it's important to remember that to do it for yourself as well, especially as we become educators and teachers, that sometimes you need to dance just for you, whether that's in front of people or not, or just with the studio door closed on your own.
Exactly.
But those creative juices have to be replenished, right?
Yeah, 100%. The teaching came on, earlier, but I was very fortunate that I did a lot through dance. It wasn't just the teaching, it was a huge part of it. But once I started to grow and develop my own creative style, I started to do more, and the choreography just started to become another part of my life. And I got to explore that a lot more, and then was given, definitely more opportunities, and then, the list goes on.
And the list goes on.
Yeah.
And did you find as a choreographer, like once you actually get into maybe doing, more some intricate choreography and that storytelling piece, did you feel like that was an outlet for you, like as a person, right, as an individual?
Yeah, 100% for sure. Choreography isn't. People approach it different ways, and I thought I had to do it the way that my mentors or my teachers did it. Choreography happens, differently for different people. So, for example, you have people that pre-plan everything, they pre-choreograph, they listen to their music, they map everything out. If it's a group, they've already got everybody assigned a spot, and steps are pre-planned, and then they can add on or take away as they go along. I tried that. That's how I'd started, because I thought that's how it had to be.
Right.
And I got stuck. And I would literally have arguments with myself, And I had a hard time with that. And I thought, there's something really wrong with this. And for me, there has to be another way. And it wasn't until I discovered that I'm a very on the spot, in the mood kind of person. That's when my creative juices happen. And they happen when that student or students are in the room. It's not always an alone thing. Sometimes it happens alone, and I'll make a note of, I'd love to, incorporate that somewhere. But most of the time, it happened on the spot and in the classroom, because I fed off of
their energy.
I fed off of their, how much they were able to handle. I fed off of. I had the physical bodies that I could actually move and create pictures with. I couldn't do it, with little notation on paper. I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And that's how it happened for me.
And it's such a beautiful thing that each person can do it differently, right? Like, even I know sometimes when I'm making choreography, sometimes it comes to you in the weirdest times. You're like in the shower, all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, this would work, and I love that.
Yep.
And sometimes you'll have these moments where you feel like, okay, this is exactly how I see it, and you teach it to them, and then they do it, and you go, oh, that looks weird.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Or sometimes you have just a small idea, and then you work with your students, and you kind of collaborate with them, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's what it was supposed to look like.
Exactly.
And it's like this beautiful moment, and it's kind of so interesting creatively, where sometimes you'll start here and end up somewhere else.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I loved having that freedom.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, choreography is supposed to be your vision, your art, your feeling, your expression, and you are, instead of it being like, a print on the wall or like paint on canvas, it's that physical movement, and I think we have to not forget that.
Yes.
Right. It's a part of you or whatever.
You have to feel the dancing is so important, right? I always say to the kids, it's live art.
Yes.
Right? It's never going to be exactly the same every time. And it might look the same to someone watching it, but it's how you feel.
Yeah.
You might feel super great one day when you're performing it, or another day you might feel really emotional while you're performing it. Sometimes it's just life. You might be really tired and you're just like really pushing through to find the energy to do it. And I think we have to normalize that, where it's okay to feel that emotion and put that into your art, right?
Yep.
And even for kids, being like collaborative with them, right? Where they can understand that like it's okay for you to, as a choreographer and a dancer, to talk to each other. And because sometimes I feel like if they're attached to the piece that you're choreographing, you get a different performance out of it.
True.
Right?
And they're not going to always feel what you're feeling, but if they get the idea of, you know, what your concept is or what you're thinking about, and having that discussion with them, it's like, you know, oh, I saw something there that you just did. What was that? Do that again, because that was obviously a very natural moment for them, and then you can play up on that.
You can play up on it, right?
Yeah,
and they can relate to it.
And
then.
you know, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I always think it's cute. We like when you kind of do a collaboration, or you talk to your dancers, and I think sometimes people forget that they do have so much inside of them that they want to express. Like, we have this beautiful choreography we want to express, but sometimes they have it as well, right? And when you can kind of marry those things together, where you take this beautiful concept that you have, and then you give it to them, and it's interesting to watch their interpretations of it come to life. And sometimes they really perform it for you because they understand your story.
Yep.
And sometimes they'll be like, I made a dance a few years ago, and everybody felt like it was something they felt that they could resonate with, but then it was something that I felt really strongly about. But when we got to a certain point, one of the girls said to me, Miss, I feel like this dance is about me and my brother. And I feel like you made it for us. And I didn't know any of that story, but in her mind, that was how
her connection.
And I love that, right?
Yeah.
And it's such a great moment to show how dance can, as choreographers and educators,
bring out those things.
Bring those things out, right? Yeah.
100%.
And I think there's, as artists, they're little artists, and they have so much to give, right? Yeah.
And I think too, when you take that moment, when you're in the middle of your choreography, how you approach it and how you allow yourself to be sort of vulnerable and let those things come out, I think is great, because you're helping them as well, not just about learning dance and taking instruction, but also to, hey, it's I feel these things, and it's okay for them to come out.
Yes.
If I can't get it out in words, I can get it out here.
Get it out in dancing, right?
And you give them that comfort zone to be able to do that. So
it is that
it's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing, right? And I think that's something growing up maybe wasn't expressed to us enough, right?
Yeah.
So we learned that as adults, and so now I feel like I want kids to know, like, these are opportunities that you have. There's so many things that you can do within the dance world, right? That are really, really amazing.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about how you ended up in the world of adjudicating dance competitions and your journey there. Yeah.
That was so the studio that I grew up with and taught with. Of Miss Laxton. She holds a huge place in history and dance in this community in the Hamilton area. She was asked to adjudicate at the Brantford Dance Festival.
Okay.
And that was a festival that was held every year, and it was about 7 days long. And I think they reached to a point where they were like 10 days long.
Oh wow!
It was an incredible competition, very classy event. And anyway, she was asked to be part of the panel, and I think they had 5 judges on the panel. At that time, there were no recording devices. The judge had to have a writer, so they provided writers, or if the judge felt more comfortable, having their own writer, they can invite that person. Again, it was awesome paid position. And an opportunity to really learn.
Yes.
So it was, you had your adjudicator, their writer, adjudicator, writer, and basically at that time the adjudicator would speak into the writer's ear, and you are transcribing what they're saying.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's basically how it is. And the mark that you're given, you put the mark on the paper, and then that's passed down the line and gone off to tabulating. But it was in that process that you get to hear what they're thinking, what they're looking for. So that's how I was brought into the whole, adjudicating scene as a writer. Learned a lot. I did that for several events with her. And then not really sure what happened, but I was invited to adjudicate. I honestly couldn't tell you where that was. It was quite some time ago. But having that foundation, being brought into it that way, gave me definitely the confidence that I needed to, to sit there and give my own comments. And then from there, it was just that's basically how it started. And I just kind of kept getting invited to places, and here you go.
Oh, that's awesome!
Yeah, and it's a big part of my life now. And I like that I still have that connection to dance from that side of the world. And I look forward to competition season every year for that reason. Probably more now than I did when I was out at competitions with my own students. It's totally different. Clearly, totally different feeling, right? You're on edge for different reasons, but now it's nice. I can sit back and really appreciate, the work that goes into it by, the teachers and the directors and the performers themselves. So
that's wonderful.
Love doing it.
And you were saying you're doing about 10 competitions this year.
So that's the most I've ever done.
Yeah.
But I wanted to save the space for it because it's a hard season. It's hard on the body. It's hard on the mind. But I feel like I grow. By the end of it, I'm tired, and you're sort of 3-4 days at home, and then you're gone to an event. Sometimes I don't have to stay at a hotel. It's nice if it's local. I can go back and forth from home. That helps sometimes. But I think anyway, by the end of it, I feel like I've gotten that juice again and just grown in a sense of it just gives me fulfillment, right? It just fulfills the heart and the soul, and it's nice to see what the changes are every year
as dance grows and evolves, right? And I feel like it's always evolving, right? There's this constant evolution of dance, and
it's mind blowing.
It is mind blowing, right?
Because when you and I danced, our big thing was like a jeté or a chaîné into a jeté turn, or and today it is incredible what these dancers do.
It is. It's far. I'm always trying to balance the athleticism and the sport of it with the artistry, right?
Exactly.
And I think when we were younger, there was a little bit of the athleticism was obviously important, but the art was really the focus. And I feel now we're really a lot of these dancers are really athletes and extremely strong. Not that we weren't as well, but I feel like there is definitely almost like an equal contribution to being the athleticism and the artistry together, right?
Yeah. The dancer's body and their abilities have, as you said, evolved, changed over the years, and also I think the training has had to change with it too. As teachers, there was a moment in time where I think that change started to happen, but there wasn't. I felt, from what I could see, there wasn't enough knowledge in the instructional part of it, like how to incorporate specific strength building and conditioning exercises to support some of this work that was being done, that was being derived from, gymnastics or the tumbling.
Yes.
There has to be, foundational exercises and classes held to develop the strength that's needed and to develop
execute those skills
and the safety of it too.
Yeah.
So you can see that that's happening and at a much younger age too.
And they're starting at a much younger age, right? There was just even ourselves as dancers, there was only so many styles of dance you could study, and
that's
now there's so many more, right? And you're I feel like even myself as a choreographer, it's like you're still constantly evolving, and you want the knowledge, you want to learn more, and science is now part of that, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of great doctors in science that kind of come together to go, okay, how can we prevent injury, and how can we do these harder things, but make our dancers strong enough to be able to execute
sustain it
safely, right?
Yeah, exactly. And get through their dancing years, because let's face it, most of these kids that are doing this, they're doing it out of it is an extracurricular. They enjoy it. It's it's their chosen thing. If it's not a sport, then it's dance, or maybe they do both. But it's a thing that they're going to that's going to take them through to hopefully grade 12 till they graduate, and sometimes even a little bit after that. I know so many of my students went to university and were part of a competitive team at university.
A dance team at university, yeah.
So if you've done that, if you've managed to, to give them that physical training that they've been able to sustain, that physical performance all that way, amazing.
Awesome. And then to be able to take those skills, like I always feel like that's such an important thing, to be able to take the skills you've learned at dancing as far as like passion and perseverance and dedication to something, right? And learning those skills and taking them on to whatever you do in life, whether it's with dance or it's not, and those friendships, right? Like there's not a lot of jobs that you get to do where you get to watch someone grow up from like 2 or 3 years old into a grown adults and really get to see them thrive and watch their friendships grow. I know we were talking earlier about watching people get married and have babies
having
and
kids,
and it's such a great gift, I think, right? There's a lot of jobs where you don't get to see that level of growth in a person and watch them like evolve from this little guy.
It's a bond. It's a bond you've created, right? And I'm amazed at, I go to the grocery store and I still see people to this day, and I still remember people. I mean, I was always good with names and faces, and I know people are always surprised when I remember their last name or whatever. But how could you not?
It's true.
But it's just amazing to see. Time goes on, and when you run into people and you hear about what their kid is doing now or child's doing now or their adult is doing now, it's you create bonds with the kids that stay with you all the way through. But I think it's also so nice that people remember you, even if they've been a part of your life for 1, 2, 3 years, and they remember that you brought something out in their kid, or that child remembers, oh, you were my favorite teacher, and you gave me such whatever. You helped me to really,
gain confidence.
And
I think sometimes you don't know the impact you're having on somebody,
Exactly.
right? And you want to be able to really give them the best of yourself.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So that's a huge part of why I probably, lasted in this industry as long as I did, and it's because of those connections and those bonds, and it keeps you going because you feel appreciated, right?
And when it's authentic and you love it, right? Then it comes out, right? It's organic and it's true.
Yeah,
I think those things resonate, and definitely you are your love of dance and your passion for it are very honest and pure. And I feel like anybody who's in your presence knows that it's such a joy to listen to you talk about dancing. And before we wrap up, if you were to give advice to a young dancer, like you're going to, adjudicate 10 competitions this year, what would be one piece of advice you would give to dancers coming into a competition season? And maybe one piece of advice you would give to like a dance parent, like someone whose child is in this industry and where they're going?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think from the dancer perspective, I think one thing that I would say is be true to yourself, be true to your art, and it's not always about those jumps and turns and flips and things. What really stands out in your performance for me, and I'm sure other adjudicators as well, but especially for me, because it's something that I really look for, is that your love, your passion, your commitment to the art form is there and present. And
the joy is there.
The joy, right?
Yeah.
That's what's going to. I love when a performer can come out and bring me into and make me a part of their performance. And instead of it being a mechanical movement that's repeated, over and over again, it's the enjoyment of the movement and that moment, that those 2 minutes that you have on the stage.
Yeah, no,
right?
absolutely. That love is there.
Exactly. And that's key for me. And that would be the advice that I give. It's not, don't be asking your teacher to put, this move in it or that move in it just because everybody else is doing it. No, it's not about that. It's about you your connection to your music and what you're going to bring to that performance or bring out of that performance.
I love that. And being like authentically yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, bringing what you only you can bring those things to the table.
Absolutely.
Right?
No one can teach you that. No one can teach you passion. No one can teach you to love what you're doing. That has to come from you.
It has to come, and everybody has something to bring.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. And
That's
the other
awesome.
things, it's nice. It's a nice added bonus. But again, I mean, I have so many times I have called out dancers who have literally done entire routines without a turn, a kick, or a jump. Believe it or not, it can be done. It can be done.
It
and
can be,
yes. Beautiful.
And
stunning and very different. It stands out because it's very different. It's not a repetition of things that we're seeing.
It's authentic.
So that's key. Original. That's key.
I love it.
Yes, yes. And from the parent perspective, if you know your child has a passion for it, and if you can be there to support them through it, that's the only thing you could do. I mean, I was fortunate because I had, my girls danced as well, and that was tough being a dance, being the teacher and the mom is very, very different. But if you can purely be there as that parent, that's the best thing that you can do. You're giving them the opportunity to be extremely well-rounded and accomplished people. And even if it means just one class a week, it doesn't have to be a full-on competitive program. One class a week.
Just an opportunity to express yourself, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that, because I think when you do have that support from your parents, whatever that is, and that love, it resonates. It gives you that confidence, right? And it doesn't. You're right. It doesn't have to be. It can be one class a week that you just feel really great about. That they get to go and find that artistry in themselves.
And it doesn't have to be about the win. It's just the being there. It's being part of something that's that's going to help you grow.
Yeah.
I remember just very quickly. I remember the frustrations. As a dancer, I had so many expectations of myself, and when I wasn't successful at something, I'd go home crying, and I remember, I would never say I'm going to quit, but the frustration was there, and I was going through a hard time. And of course, when your parents see you crying because you want something so bad, but you fluffed it or whatever happened, I remember my dad saying, "So quit." No, I'm not going to quit because the love is just there. It taught me how to get over challenges and how to refocus and how to, go about it a different way. And that led me to, my lifelong career.
Your lifelong career, your passion. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Jasmina, for joining us today.
Thank you, Christina, so
Dancers
much.
in studio drinking tea. And
thank you.
It's been a joy to have you.
Thank you so much for having
sharing.
me.
Thank you so much to Jasmina for reminding us to embrace our uniqueness and let it shine on stage.